to the next point. We should ensure whatever we see is clear.
That means work is being done. We can see that it is in opposite direction.
Good day, my dear learners and viewers out there. You are most welcome again to another segment of e-learning sponsored by the Kaduna State Government. My students, I remain your CRS teacher, Mrs. Asabe David Ndagjana. Today, my students, we are going to look at another topic that reads Ahab's greed. Ahab's greed. And this story is found in the book of 1 Kings chapter 21 from verse 1 to 29. My students, we ever discussed this. That was when we discussed about the healing of Naaman. And we saw how his servant Gehazi demonstrated greed. And he was actually punished by what he did. And you tend to see that greediness attracts punishment. So it is not good for us to be greedy. So let us look at the meaning of greed again. What is greed? It is a selfish and excessive desire for the good things of life or the urge to acquire things beyond one's normal due. Greed can lead one to murder or kill, tell lies, false accusation, false claims, and so on. My students, if you are greedy, you can always tell lies. In our last lesson, we discussed how some of you students used to be greedy. If you are asked to bring something from school or you are asked to buy something, instead of telling your parents the exact money, you go and tell them lies. So you tend to see that in that aspect, you are greedy. And greed can even make you to kill. My students, it does not necessarily mean that you take something and stab somebody to death. But by the time you are greedy, you don't want to see that person alive. What has he done? That is greed. So you should always wish everybody good. And the God that created you will actually pay you for that. Now, let us go ahead and see what happened. Now, in what we are going to learn today, my students, we are going to learn about a king who demonstrated greed. And in the process, he wanted to live at the detriment of a very poor citizen. And his wife, Jezebel, also contributed. So let us see the life of King Saul. How did he demonstrate greed, my students? And as we go ahead, you actually see how he, the king, was actually greedy. Now, the man Naboth was from Jezreel, and he had a vineyard or a garden that was close to the palace of King Ahab. The king desired the vineyard and requested from Naboth so that he can convert it to a vegetable garden. Naboth was a poor citizen. Naboth was a citizen of Israel. Now, he had a vineyard very close to the king's palace. Now, the king saw the vineyard, that was King Ahab. He saw the vineyard and wanted it. So what did he do? He did not confiscate it. He rather called Naboth and asked of it. Now, let us go ahead and see what really happened between the two. He wanted to exchange it for money or give Naboth a better vineyard, but the poor citizen turned Ahab's request down, pointing out that it was his father's inheritance. He said, and I quote, "The Lord forbid that I should give you the inheritance of my fathers." My students, if you have everything that has been given to you in the right way, in fact, you will not be afraid to tell anybody anything because you want to actually be the owner of that thing. So you tend to see that King Ahab wanted that vineyard, but he didn't want to seize it by force. He called this citizen, Naboth, and requested, "Let me have this vineyard. I will give you a better one, or I will give you as much as you tell me to give you." But Naboth, who who is not in the aspect of trying to see what somebody has and maybe covet it, he refused. What did he say? It was his father's inheritance. It was given to him as an inheritance. So my students, you tend to see that there are many today whose parents have died. They have inherited a lot from their parents, but you tend to see that they have sold those things out and they are having nothing today. So you tend to see that to get an inheritance is to keep the name of the family going. So you tend to see that Naboth, who inherited his father's vineyard, refused to release it, even to his king. And he told him, that God forbid that I should release it to you. He didn't even bother about the position of the king. He wanted to actually maintain what he has inherited from his parents, and so he kept it. He was not even afraid. So my students, it is good that you maintain whatever you have been given by your parents. In fact, that will even take you a long way to be contented with whatever your parents must have given you. Don't see somebody's thing and want to acquire it by force. You know, in that aspect, you are trying to be a greedy somebody. Now, let's go ahead. Now, if you look at this picture, my students, you can see Ahab. You can see him with his crown to show you that he was the king of Israel. And you can see his palace up there, and you can see the vineyard very close to his palace. He had been inspecting, he has been seeing this vineyard and actually wanted to have it. But Naboth, who never bothered about anybody's property, kept to his words, and he said he can never release it to him. Now, Ahab the king became very sad and refused to eat food. When his wife Jezebel discovered her husband's mood, she inquired, and the husband told her all that transpired between him and Naboth. Jezebel asked her husband to cheer up and eat his food, and assured him of possessing the land. Now, when Naboth told the king that he was never going to release that vineyard to him, he went back home. He didn't ask his servants to kill him, nor do anything harmful to Naboth, but he went back quietly to his house or to the palace and lied down. He even refused to eat. Now, you tend to see that when the wife Jezebel came in and found out that her husband had not eaten, you see, she showed that concern that her husband had not eaten. But on the contrary, she didn't give him good counsel. She told him, or she asked him, what is it that you've not eaten? He what? He told her all that transpired between him and Naboth, that Naboth refused to release his vineyard, pointing out to him that it was an inheritance. Jezebel, on her own part, she stood up and asked her husband, are you not the king of Israel? Come on, get up and eat. I know what I will do for you to actually own this vineyard. And the king, on his own part, never gave it a second thought. What did he do? He got up and ate. Now let us see what happened. Jezebel wrote letters in Ahab's name and sent them to the elders and nobles of the land. The content of the letter was, proclaim a fast and set Naboth on high among the people, and set two base fellows opposite him, saying, you have cursed God and the king. Then take him out and stone him to death. The men did as she told them, and they reported back that, and I quote my students, Naboth has been killed or has been stoned. He is dead. Now, Ahab was told by his wife, Jezebel, that he should get up and eat. She would do all that she could to make him the owner of that land. And what did she do, my students? She wrote a letter. writing this letter, she wrote it in the name of her husband as the king. And who were the citizens not to obey what was coming from the palace? She wrote this letter, stamped it, and sent it to the elders of the land. And what did she tell them? That they should set Naboth in the center, put some men, and accuse him of what? Of disobeying God and even the king. And who are you, my students, not to obey the king and God? So you tend to see that when that was done, they accused him to have done that to the king and God, and she ordered them that Naboth should be taken out of the city and stoned to death. And that was carried out immediately. And when they have finished their assignment, what did they do? They have to report back. So they reported back to Jezebel that the mission had been carried out. Now, my students, if you remember the story of Joseph in our previous lessons, Joseph in the house of Potiphar was accused of sleeping with the wife of Potiphar, but he didn't do it. Joseph had the fear of God in him, and what did he do? He told the wife of Potiphar that he can never commit such a sin before his God and his master. But by the time Potiphar came back, Joseph was never given the opportunity to defend himself. He was what? He was imprisoned immediately. So my students, you tend to see that Naboth, who was to be stoned to death, was never given the chance to defend himself. An order had come from the palace, so the people immediately obeyed, and that was how this poor citizen was stoned to death. My students, we have to be very careful. We have to love ourselves, show concern for one another, and we should not hate our brothers and sisters. We should rather love them. And whatever position God has placed in your hands, you should rather honor God with it, rather than using it to oppress the poor or those ones among your group that are not opportune to be rich. Now, my students, let us proceed. Now, having said that, God, who is the owner of everything, who knows every heart, what did he do? He did not leave the king unpunished. So, when Jezebel heard of Naboth's death, she told her husband to get up and go to the vineyard and take possession. In the process of taking possession, God sent Prophet Elijah, the Tishbite, to go and rebuke King Ahab in Naboth's vineyard for killing and taking possession of the dead person's garden. Prophet Elijah was equally asked by God to pronounce the following curses on King Ahab. You know, it was reported back that Naboth had been killed, and immediately Jezebel went and told her husband, Ahab, that she should just go and take ownership. And you know, Prophet Elijah was not found in the vineyard on his own, but that he was directed by God. You see, God knows everything. And I told you the other time that a prophet is somebody that receives messages from God. So God messaged Prophet Elijah to go to the garden or the vineyard of that poor citizen, Naboth. He will see the king there, who was trying to take possession of the garden. And God asked Prophet Elijah to rebuke King Ahab of having killed him and at the same time trying to take possession. If he had just killed him and decided not to take possession, that would have been a different thing, my students. But he was committing very strong crime at the same time, killing and going back again to take possession. And so God did not leave King Ahab unpunished. And so what did God say about the punishment or the consequences of his greed? So I tend to see that in what we have discussed so far, Ahab the king was actually greedy in his acts. Now let us proceed and see what really happened. Now, you tend to see that the one with the crown up there, my students, dressing gorgeously, was King Ahab. And this one that raised his hand up, he was actually rebuking King Ahab of what he had done. You can see the two. And where are they, my students? You know, I told you that God, knowing everything, instructed Prophet Elijah to go to the vineyard and rebuke him. So he went, made King Ahab right inside the vineyard, viewing it, and was ready to take possession. So Prophet Elijah was now rebuking him. And he was not only rebuking him, but he was pronouncing the punishments God had prepared for him. Let us go ahead. Dogs, that was the pronouncements of the punishment. God told Prophet Elijah that he should tell King Ahab that dogs will lick the blood of Ahab in the place where they licked the blood of Naboth. You tend to see that Naboth was actually stoned dead, right? So definitely blood will be rushing out. So where he stood and he was being stoned and blood was gushing out, Ahab was told that his would be the same. Point 2 said, God will cut off every male from the house of Ahab. That was a serious punishment, my student. Another punishment was that dogs will eat Jezebel within the bounds of Jezreel. She was what? She acted wrongly. She wrongly advised the husband, gave him a wrong counsel. Now, another punishment was that the dogs will eat any member of Ahab's family who died in the city, while the birds of the air will eat anyone in Ahab's family who died in the open country. My students, if somebody dies, what happened? That person is given a befitting burial. But you tend to see that since it was a punishment against the family of King Ahab, dogs and birds will eat up the bodies of these dead ones, whether in the city or outside the city. So we need to be very, very careful. Now let us see. When Ahab heard what Prophet Elijah said, he tore his clothes and put on sackcloth as a show of repentance. God asked Elijah whether he had seen how Ahab had humbled himself before him, and that he, God, will not bring the evil in his days, but in his son's days. God postponed the punishment to the days of his sons. Now, my students, when Ahab heard of the punishment, which he knew would definitely come upon him, he what? He humbled himself. In fact, it takes humility for you to get what you want before God. If you are so full of yourself, you never can go anywhere. So no matter your level in the society, if you just pat down and calm down, you'll be able to get what you want, my students. So even if you are highly placed, remember those ones that are what? That are down. Because one day you will be down. So that even when you are down, when you meet such people, you'll be able to rhyme very well. That is why punishing the juniors in the secondary school, my students, should be stopped. They were not there when you were punished. So why punishing them anyhow? You will meet one day, and it is expected that when you meet, you are supposed to what? To live well. In fact, they will cherish you. They will come and hug you, telling their parents or friends that, oh, this was my senior, and she was very good to me while we were in the secondary school. So we need to be very careful, my students. Now, you tend to see that here was the king who knew that God was actually going to punish him. What did he do? We read from the Bible that he removed those his royal clothes and what? And wore a sackcloth. He humbled himself and wore a sackcloth. You see, sack are used to what? To put grains. He used it to do what? To wear. And so he humbled himself, and God asked Prophet Elijah, have you seen the king? See how he had humbled himself. And God, in his infinite mercy, my students, what did he do? He postponed the punishment, and that the punishment will still be meted to his sons hereafter. So we need to be very careful with the things of God. Moral lessons, my students. 1, the rich should not oppress the poor because of their riches or position in the society. As you grow up, my students, God will release his riches on you. And when he does that, remember the poor ones. 2, we should love and have concern for one another in order to bridge up the gap between the highly placed people and the less privileged. You see, if King Ahab had concern for this poor citizen Naboth, in fact, he would have even helped him to actually make good use of that his vineyard. But today, my students, the reverse is the case. You tend to see that there are a lot of people who have farms. The fertilizer is not there. They cannot do otherwise. So, my students, we really need to be careful. Greed is a social evil that attracts negative results. Please, my students, you should remain at home. Don't just be going about to take a disease that your parents, who are innocent, who don't even know what happened, will come and what? Be taking care of you. Be innocent, and you never even come out to tell them the truth. So we have to be very careful. Whatever they give you, tell them thank you and wait on God. It will definitely make you high one day, my students. So remain calm to the glory of God. Now, the consequences of greed affect both the offender and the innocent. Our parents, our friends are innocent of that offense you commit. So don't involve them to suffer for nothing. No act of sin can escape the notice of God, no matter how it is covered before men. You remember the story of David? He impregnated the wife of Uriah, killed him, made him killed, put Uriah to drink so that he will have the urge of seeing his wife. Uriah refused, and at the end of it, the sin was not actually covered, right? So whatever sin you commit, just make yourselves available. Talk to God, and he's ready to what? To forgive you rather than covering it. Wives should give wise and godly counsel to their spouses, not like Jezebel did to her husband. My viewers are there. I know some of us are married, and my students, I know one day you equally get married. Please don't be that selfish. Don't love the things of the world and allow your husband to lavish his money unnecessarily while you have important issues to solve in life. My students, I hope you will get this counsel, put it into use, and I pray God will see us through at the end of our lives. So, my students, before I step down, I have an assignment for you. Question 1, how did Ahab, as a king, manifest his greed? He was actually greedy. How did he show it? 1b, state the consequences of Ahab's greed. He was punished. How was he punished? 2a, explain the role of Jezebel in the death of Naboth. She actually played a very serious role that she was not supposed to have done it. Now, question 2b, write 2 lessons that can be learned in this episode. We've learned a lot, my students. So in summary, we've learned how Ahab was so greedy in trying to acquire the land inherited by Naboth. And Naboth bluntly told him that he was never going to release it because it was an inheritance. His wife, seeing the mood of the husband, what did she do? She encouraged him. Let him just get up. He's the king of the land. She knows what to do to get him to own that land. And at the end of it, that was how that poor citizen called Naboth was stoned to death. And he, the king, after the death of Naboth, went to the vineyard to take ownership. But God, who knows everything, told Prophet Elijah to go and rebuke him. So my students, he was actually rebuked of the sin he committed. So let us live well. Now, in case you want to contact me, I remain your CRS Mistress, Asebe David Ndagjana. My contact number is 080-7725-1542. Stay safe, keep learning, my students, till we meet in our next lesson.